Hello, everyone. It's Robin and Heidi. We're back again. We're sorry for our absence. We had a family wedding. We were gone for a couple weeks, and we're just getting settled and ready to tackle back on a few more uh, subjects for you guys. Welcome, Robin. Welcome, Athena.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be leaving now. They're coming in.
Okay, sounds real good. So today we thought an interesting topic would be triggers. Um, Could you kind of start us off by explaining to people what is a trigger and how would someone identify one?
Uh, a trigger is something that gets pulled. As you know, in a gun, you put a little pressure onto a trigger and then it sets the gun off, you see. And there are many humans who have these triggers within them. And if a little pressure gets put upon them, before they know it, they have been set off and they do not really feel as though they are in control of themselves. They feel as though they have what is a pretty volatile response to sometimes something that seems to be not very big. Not that that is always the case. Sometimes it's big, but it can be a sign of a trigger. Oftentimes is a big reaction to something that really isn't that big at all, you see.
Mm-hmm. And in my experience, triggers aren't always anger-based. Sometimes they're sadness or emotion-based. Is that a correct thing to say or a correct assumption?
We would tell you that all triggers are tied into emotions. There is always an emotion at the root of every trigger that a human is suffering with. Robin's laughing in a little bit in the background. She's going to share one of her triggers to give you an idea of how this can happen and sneak up on a human pretty quickly. She had her son and her grandchild over for dinner, and it was her birthday, and she was doing the cooking. They decided to stay in. It's a little easier with the little one than dragging him to a restaurant. He does not appreciate that very much at his age. And so they were getting the food ready, and all of a sudden, Dave disappeared. He was gone into the garage, and Robin felt herself get kind of annoyed because for those of you that don't know Dave, he is a little bit of a workaholic. He has always had this tendency or way about him. And now he is in the process of building a boat. And as Robin says it, all she ever sees is the hind side of him going to the garage. They will be in the middle of a movie in the evening, and then he will all of a sudden just disappear, and she'll look out the window and see that he is on his way to his garage. He is always checking on or looking at this thing. And what actually happened yesterday, though, was a little bit of a misunderstanding because she had given the boys both haircuts and there was some cleanup to do, and he had even mentioned to her that he was going to be cleaning up out there for a few minutes before he came in to join her to help her on her birthday with the dinner that they would be serving, you see. And she forgot all about that when she noticed him going into that garage and the door shut behind him and he was not helping her and it was her birthday. She exploded, really. She got really irritated and asked him to come in the house. He was supposed to be helping, you see. And then all of a sudden, well into it, she realized I had a trigger set off. And the trigger was brought on by long periods of Dave doing the same thing where he keeps disappearing into his garage. And it's become a little bit of a sensitive area or something that when it is touched upon sets her off, you see. So this is how it's just a little one, and she was aware of it. So she tried to make a little bit of a correction within herself, but also there's a little correction needed to be made within him too. He needs to be made aware of that his actions are really causing this knee-jerk response in her because he is so repetitive about what it is he is doing in his garage, you see. But we're giving you this little bit of a story because oftentimes this is how a trigger gets started. It is a two-part thing usually between individuals. It can be between groups even, depending. But when something gets repeated over and over again, the response starts to get stronger and stronger and stronger within you. It's as though you are a recording device that is keeping track of every infraction. And then pretty soon, the fuse gets very short. Robin knew a very wonderful girl that was a friend of hers who had adopted two children who had a lot of problems. They had very abusive parents. And so Most children, if you would tap them on the shoulder, they would turn around and smile at you and ask you what you wanted. But these children, because of the abuse they had suffered, if you touched them on the shoulder, they would roll around and punch you, you see. And so we use this story again to explain to you how life experiences can accumulate within a human, and as they do, a chain is built, and then as this chain is built, the human gets more and more responsive. And why does it get more responsive? Because it wants it to stop. It wants it to be changed. It wants you to notice the discomfort or the suffering, really, that you have been through, that you have inadvertently maybe pushed aside or not really taken notice of, you see.
Yeah. I also had a recent trigger activation, and it was very different from the one that you just explained for Robin. Mine was, I've had it since I was a little girl because I was the youngest of six, and I was feeling all the time when another sister left the house that I was left behind. And I kind of got this almost like a panicky feeling of being the last one there and nobody being around. And so when we were traveling, as I mentioned, we were gone. My daughter got married. I was coming back, and I was the unlucky one that was flagged for a security check in one of the airports in another country. And I tried to handle it well, but I was a little sleep deprived. And as it went on and it seemed to just escalate, and I was getting ready to board the plane and my ticket wouldn't work, I just broke down in tears, and I was just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing, and this overwhelming feeling of, please don't leave me behind here by myself in this foreign country just hit me.
Yes.
And when I got on the plane, after it was all good and I boarded, I just couldn't stop the crying. I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, and I felt so like so much raw emotion. And it almost felt healing to cry, but yet I also had an awareness that it was attached to an old trigger.
Actually, what we were going to tell you is you did heal it as you had this response. And then as you made it known to yourself, as you recognized what it was that you were feeling, you knew that it was a childhood wound. You were very aware of it. And let's just say this, the child in you knew you were aware as well. And once this connection happens, once this inner child or this part of you that felt abandoned, that felt not heard, that felt not seen or included, once she felt you engage in this way, that you recognized what it was coming from, now this is how the wound is healed, you see. It's similar really to what happened to Robin, because she felt as though she weren't important enough. Here it was her birthday, and yet he is going to continue this behavior of working all evening and not coming in when called 2 or 3 times, you see. And so there was a wound, whether it comes out in anger or not, it matters not. There is usually a very sensitive part of the being that feels as though it is not being recognized or honored, let's use that term, by the situation that is occurring over and over again. What is the problem with triggers is there are very few people who really take the time to soothe themselves out of them or to even recognize that they have one. Humans like to move into justification energy. Heidi, we have talked to you before about justification, and a human will say, well, let's say in Robin's case, her husband does go to the garage too much. He doesn't come in when he is called over and over, so he is deserving of the response that he is getting, you see. And that is something that is neither here nor there. You could say that, you could justify the response that you are having, but unless you want to continue to have that response over and over again, justification is never going to serve you in getting you to heal the wound or to get this reoccurring situation to stop. So we commend you really, Heidi, for what happened in that situation with you, because you have honored yourself by recognizing and knowing that really it had little to do with your ticket, because obviously your husband is not going to abandon you at the airport. He is going to stay, and there will be a reckoning. Something will be fixed or brought to fruition. You will figure it out, yes. And so, but you took the time to really make the connect or the understanding that the response you were having really didn't fit the crime or the situation that was occurring right there in that moment. And it was almost surprising to you that you were as emotive as you were.
Yes.
Robin has experienced this herself. She said, boy, the trip must have been a time for triggers, because she had a couple herself while she was there. Yes. One occurred. It was just a little situation where her son accused her of not being a very good listener. He told her that sometimes he has to tell her things 2 or 3 times, and she felt an overwhelming amount of emotion come forward, and the tears flooded down. Yes, she was very upset to think that her, being the best mother she could possibly be, that her son would view her as not a good listener, you see. But what she started to realize as they talked about it, and he realized right away that something got activated in her when he said this to her, that she started to really understand, again, her poor husband, Dave, he's getting aired here and does not even know it. He's quite a talker, Heidi, as you know, yes? And that sometimes he talks at great end about processes and things that he is doing, whether it is mixing epoxy or filling a hole, and exactly how he's going to do it and what he is going to mix and how long it is going to take. And to be quite honest with you, Robin doesn't have a clue what he is talking about, yet she is imposed upon to listen to it, you see.
Right.
And so she started to formulate this way where she would pretend to be listening, but really her mind would go elsewhere, because she said, what could I do? Yes, it was not something I was really interested in, and I didn't want to hurt his feelings because he's excited about what he's doing. Right. But unfortunately, whenever you commit to doing something that way, it starts to dribble into other parts of your life. And she found herself immediately deciding when someone was talking whether it was something interesting enough for her to listen to or not, and then tuning out, you see. And her son actually caught her in it. But it was not intentional, and there really was a foundation or a reason that it was occurring. And for Robin, the wound is in being misunderstood. It was a feeling of not being recognized, of being seen, and not being seen for how she wanted to be seen, you see, which is important to humans. They want to be viewed in the way that they are wanting to be viewed, let's say that. And to hear that this was not the case was quite upsetting to her. So these are all indicators, Heidi, as you knew the response that you had in that moment. It carries such a charge, let's use that, that it is very difficult for you to miss it.
Yes, yes. So I think we partially have answered my next question, but just maybe for a little more detail. Triggers, are they an opportunity for us to heal? Sometimes we recognize them, and then sometimes we don't recognize them. And is it in the recognition of them in which we heal it, or is there a way we could go about healing them even if we're not aware in the moment that we're triggered?
You are absolutely right. And what it is a piece of consciousness that is not known to you or recognized by you. A human, we would tell you, is on a mission, really, upon the earth plane. They want to be whole. What does it mean to be whole? A wholeness means that you feel all parts of yourself, that you are not shut down in any one area, that you are responsive to life and to all of the situations that you are a part of. Let's use that term. Yes. And so what happens is when you have an area within you that you have shut down a little bit or closed off because of an experience of pain or separation, we like to call it, that when a situation presents itself that taps the level of emotion or the emotion that is trapped within you, it will set off this emotional response as a sign or signal. Look at me. Yes. And we would actually go as far as to tell you that there is a part of you, when we told you that everyone wants to become whole, there's a part of you that experienced life at whatever age that infraction occurred, that is holding itself separate from you and waiting to be reintegrated or recognized for its contribution, its suffering. All suffering is a contribution. We're going to talk about that a little bit in a moment. But do you understand what we are saying? It is the little girl, say at 7, 8, 9, whenever it was that this occurred, is reaching out for reintegration. And you have an opportunity every time you feel emotion to decide to do this, or to let it build up until eventually you cannot ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
Now, we would also tell you that some people, without this wisdom or knowledge, without this understanding that we are talking about here today, they can let this emotion build up to the point where it makes them sick, where they have no idea that there is a part of them that is desperately trying to reunite itself with them, and that if they continue to go up throughout their entire lives with all these separated pieces, and many have many, not just one or
Yeah.
two little things, but maybe they have hundreds of things that are needing to be reintegrated, that these are some of the primary causes of sickness and bad health in humans, you see.
Hmm. I totally believe that.
Yes.
So you would say then that the
Mhm.
steps to healing is number one, being in recognition when you feel that your emotion is too strong for what the situation is.
Yes.
Self-soothing. Are there other things that you would recommend?
This recognition really is one of the biggest factors in healing wounds that humans have. And then to really gain this understanding that we gave you, to maybe even communicate a little bit with the wound or the emotion. I feel you. Yes, I
Yep.
know that something is happening here that I need to have a look at. How old are you? When did this occur? What can I do? What could I listen to? What do you have for me? You see, and as you reach out in this way, there is no part of you that will not communicate with you. It is wanting to, it is why it has emoted. It wants you to speak to it. It wants you to recognize it, and to, rather than deny the emotion, which is really what has happened when emotion becomes lodged or trapped within the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is a reactor part of the brain where situations that have occurred have been stored that you have not consciously recognized as painful, you see. So
Mhm.
each time that you are stimulated unconsciously, perhaps something happens and then it connects to that incident or pain that is within you, then this is your point for you consciously to feel it and to recognize that pain, where in the past you may have just cried and thought, oh, well, everybody cries because they're not getting on the plane. You would not have
Yeah.
really realized what you realized, you see.
Right. 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 So is it important to know the source of the trigger or the original wound? Is it important to know specifically
Hmm.
or just to
Uh,
feel it?
You can feel it. It is enough. We have told humans over and over before that when they are carrying a lot of baggage, they can decide to drop the bags. They don't have to go into them. But we would tell you that if you are having this awareness, we see no harm or negative in speaking to yourself and reintegrating it and asking, is there anything else? Yes. Are there any other aspects of me that have disassociated that I can now invite back in, you see? Because as you are in this vulnerable state or place, this is a good time for you to do that. And we have told you before that when asked, this part of you is being asked by your conscious mind. And when you can consciously understand something, you actually will move it from the reactory part of the mind. And then when it becomes known to you, now it is integrated. Now you are back together again. Let's use that term.
Hmm.
Yes.
So when we're coming into life, um, do we have an awareness that we have these triggers, or are they something that are necessary to help us evolve through things? Are we meant to overcome these triggers?
We would tell you, yes, that there are humans that will enter the earth plane that will very shortly have their triggers. It is what you humans call temperament at times. Somebody has a short fuse. Somebody is very easygoing or good natured. You have heard this term or way of describing humans before. But we would tell you that oftentimes there are things that humans decide to work upon when they are on the earth plane, and it can perhaps even be ancestral. It can be something that other humans in their bloodline have struggled with, and then perhaps they decide, I will have this life, I will do this, I will work on the bad temper or the neglected feeling or whatever else it is that a human might decide to have as their project or life plan. Let's use that term. So we would tell you a human is not coming in. We know that children sometimes are referred to as 100% pure or innocent. And we are not going to dispute the fact that they are coming from pure positive energy. And so in that result, they are very excited to be here, and they are very inquisitive and very wanting to touch everything and very much open to learning, and that some of those things end up getting shut down as the life goes on. But we would also tell you, if you were astute and you paid attention to these little ones, you would be able to see that each of them is already reacting and having responses to life experiences that would indicate that they have already suffered some infractions prior to the life that they are in.
Yes, I would agree. I see that little bits of that in my grandson
We would use
already.
this example. Robin is piping up again in the background. She has a darling little grandson, really, and they have not traveled that much because of the COVID. People were home for a couple of years. He is only 3 years old. About a year ago or so, they took a little bit of a trip, and there was a little merry-go-round, or little cars that you would go in that would go round and round in a circle, you see. And now bear in mind that this one is not socialized very much. He doesn't know that many people. It is all new to him. And as he was going round and round, they started to get really excited and jump up and down and clap their hands and fuss about him as he went by. And pretty soon he looked to the side and he realized that there were some other humans that were watching, that there were other people that he did not know that were looking at him. He immediately went into what they found to be quite funny, because they are the parents and the grandparents. But he made these funny facial gestures. He cowered a little bit. He pretended not to know them. No matter how loud they clapped or tried to get his attention, he looked away as though he did not know them, you see. And so as this came to an end, Catherine came to us, the group, and she said, "What in the world is going on there?" And we said, "Well, this is one of the things that your little one is working on. He's very concerned about how he's being perceived by others, you see." Catherine was a little bit upset for a moment, because she knows that when she was a little girl, that this was something that from time to time she struggled with, you see. And so here this little one is now exhibiting this trait, and it is something that he is going to be working on, you see.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So, in a sense, then, based on some of the information you just gave us, it's almost like we manifest our own triggers, so to speak, when we decide that we're going to come into life and work on certain aspects, and certain personality types or situations will bring us to the surface. It's almost like we're creating these for
Uh,
ourselves as little reminders.
Bravo to you, we would tell you, and brilliant in your observation, because it is exactly what you are doing. It is why we did the recording the other day. For those that are listening, we also have a free podcast. It is called Athena in Truth. It is available on Spotify, Anchor, most all of the platforms for podcasts. And we did a little talk on there really about suffering, because so many people get very frustrated, especially when they are on a spiritual path, and maybe they aren't doing things quite up to par, or the way that they think that they should be doing them at the level of understanding that they have. And we made the statement really that suffering is not necessarily a negative, because it is a very propelling, a very compelling energy
Yes.
that causes a human to move. Robin knows, after eating and drinking all kinds of things for the 2.5 weeks she was in Europe, that since she got home, she wants nothing but vegetables, and she doesn't like the sight of a glass of wine, you see. And so there's good things that come out of contrast. She said, sometimes you just decide, I want to be really mindful about what I put in my body, and how I eat, and how I drink, and all of these things, you see. And so what really happened, it is the contrast that causes this degree of shift in many humans. And so we said, dependent upon the life that you have come here to live, dependent upon the desire really that you have to exceed or excel at that which you have chosen to do, can also have a very impacting level of suffering, because you may go back and forth quite a bit. But we keep telling humans, don't become the human, don't get stuck in the suffering, because every time you suffer, you end up being greater for it. Yes. And if you would just feel better as a human, if you could just let go of the experience that caused you the discomfort, then you would automatically become or receive that which you have expanded to, because of the experience that you have committed to the life you were living, you see. But humans tend to get stuck in it. But we said, hey, it's okay, you're not doing anything wrong, but know that your desire is great, because if you're going ping-ponging back and forth, dipping back and forth into contrast, which we call the bullwhip, or negativity that you like to call it, there's a good reason for it. It's because you've not reached the expansion that you're wanting to reach.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to avoid it. It's never going away. People think if they adopt spiritual principles, people will say, oh, suffering is optional. We've heard this in a lot of the spiritual texts that are out there. And we would tell you, well, if you want a flat line, that might be the case. But if you are a human, if you are breathing, if you are feeling, and you are sensing, there's going to be suffering. There's going to be contrast. There's going to always be you choosing, I like this, I don't like that. I'll go with this, I won't go with that. I'm looking at that life thinking, I'm glad it's not mine. This is how it is. This is how you create. How do you think you're going to get from where you are without it?
Yeah. Yeah. So with triggers, is it a situation where we have the ones that are more upfront or in our face, and then say we heal those? Does another batch kind of bubble up to the surface? Are we on an endless supply of triggers throughout our lives? And
Absolutely.
as
We
we,
would not say it is endless. We would hate to
yeah,
put that penance upon you. But we would tell you, you hear the old saying of like the peeling of an onion, and the most volatile ones are going to be right on top. And as you pick those off, you're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and not necessarily more volatile. You will just start tearing away a little at a time until the reactive part of you has really settled down and you realize this peaceful way that you have about you has actually been transformed by the process that we are now speaking of.
okay, yeah, that sounds good. It gives us
You're going to
something.
find in your situation in particular, and we would tell you it's one of the reasons you got what you got, you see. I know you want to think that you got flagged by random, but a human gets exactly what it is needing in the experience that are brought before them so that they have this opportunity. And you, Heidi, are on a spiritual path. You are not wanting to feel that way when you feel separated or left behind. It is not a pleasant thought or feeling for you. And you have decided in your life that you would like to feel good, that you would like to manifest the life you are wanting to have. And so then what happens is situations and circumstances such as the one that you had will start to bring forward experiences and things that will give you the opportunity to heal the things that are preventing you from doing that. We told humans the other day in the podcast when we were doing it that it can be something as simple as denying yourself something that you really want, and you are doing it because maybe you viewed it in your own parents, your own mothering, your own situation that you lived in. Perhaps to work outside the home was a terrible thing to do, and but you really wanted to. But because no one in your family did, you were shamed out of not doing it. So maybe your whole life you denied yourself that which you would really have liked to experience. And we are here to let you know the reason for the slowing of manifestations oftentimes is exactly this reason. If you deny yourself what it is you really want to experience, the universe will just deny you everything that you are wanting. It's how it works. The energy that you are emitting is what the universe is going to respond to. How are you perceiving it? How are you deciding you're going to live your life? Are you viewing the masses? Are you viewing your parents? Are you looking outside of self to decide what you will permit or not permit yourself to do? Because there are no rules here. There is no right and wrong. There is you living a sovereign life as a human and deciding, what do I want? What do I want to express? And when a human denies this in themselves, oftentimes they do not understand that they are denying themselves everything that they're calling for.
Right. Well, and yeah, I would agree that the clues are really all around us. Like when you make certain shifts in yourself, or how you deem yourself, or how you feel about yourself, then all of the exterior around you relates to you
Yes.
differently
I
and
think about it
very
really.
quickly.
As you go out into the world in your experience, you have an opportunity to look at everyone and everything that you are coming into contact with. What are you
Mhm.
thinking? Are you having an opinion about that one's hair? Are you having an opinion about that one's sexuality? Are you disgusted by someone else's foul language? Are you irritated with this or that? Because as you do this, this is your perception of your universe, and this is what the universe responds to. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter what you want. It's what
Right,
you're emanating that is the particular here.
right, right.
Very hard for humans to get this. They want to
Yeah,
have an opinion. We're not telling you you can't have an opinion,
yeah,
but have the opinion and then let it go. Don't
yeah,
penalize the one for having a life that they've chosen to have. Just decide it's not for you and then drop it.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm wondering, I don't know if this relates to triggers or how it relates, but I just feel like it's a good time to bring this up. So when I was younger, I did not have any issues with being out in an active environment, coming home and going to sleep. Now it seems like the last 10 to 15 years, it's a chronic issue for me if I'm out or if I'm in a different environment, like we were just on this trip. I come home and my mind races with thoughts and I go from thing to thing to thing. And I feel like the act of being out or the act of being somewhere outside of my home actually triggers this event in me. And I'm wondering if it needs to be handled in the same way or if it's just a different situation.
Mhm. You are one, we would tell you, that is easily overstimulated. And although you are a social being and although you are pleasant to be around, it is not to your liking to be in large groups of people or to be interacting uh, at great lengths of time, perhaps in situations that do not allow your full authenticity or your full being to be expressed. Does this make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Hmm.
So as you hold certain parts of yourself and perhaps don't share this exact way that you are, say you have a close circle of friends and they know you quite well and they are used to all of your mannerisms, they are used to your responses, you feel free, you feel very aligned in your authenticity when you are with these ones that you are regularly in interaction with, you see. But
Hmm.
when you go outside that circle now and you go out to these events where you are now posed by outside influences or outsiders, as you would call them, they are not those that you are completely comfortable with. So what we would tell you as a practice, that it is good for you to recognize and maybe take a look at the racing thoughts that you are having and what they are really based on or centered around, what you're thinking about, who you're thinking about, and maybe ask yourself why this has stimulated you in this way. I think what you're going to find is that there is some areas that perhaps you deny yourself a little bit of your sovereignty or your individualistic view on things. You don't want to step on anyone's toes. You want to be politically correct to some degree when you are with those that you do not know very well. We're not telling you not to do it. We're just telling you this is what happens with humans. And we feel like this is part of the reason, because you do not really want any part of any inauthenticity. We don't even know if that's the correct word for it, or a place that you cannot totally be yourself or totally be at ease in what it is that you want to interact or say.
Hmm. Yeah,
Makes sense to you?
it does. I get frustrated that I can't make it stop when it occurs. Like I'll try to ground myself at night and I'll just say,
Yeah.
okay, everything's
You're
gonna be
also
fine.
wanting to interject that sometimes what happens with a human, when we told you that you will have opinions or they will have opinions, we are not talking about you in particular right now, but what happens when you get out into a large group of people, and it can even be your own children that decide to live quite differently than maybe what you have agreed to or
Yeah.
even thought about doing yourself. And so it is very difficult to not formulate an opinion that becomes lodged in you, and now you have this awareness you don't really want that, you don't really want to be dwelling, so it is easier for you to then avoid certain people and situations rather than feel the emotion of not really aligning to how they are living their lives or how they are portraying themselves, if that makes sense. Yes. So what we would recommend that a human do when they find themselves in this situation, because many humans now, their children live quite differently than perhaps they did as growing up, and maybe humans are not necessarily going to align with everything that their own children are doing based upon how they lived their lives. So what is a good thing to do is to just notice once again that I am here as an experiencer to notice. I've just noticed that. Yes, not really for me. I don't really like it. And then move away and decide that this one is an adult or that one is living their own life. It is okay. I do not need to let it get in my energy field or to affect me negatively. I'm just going to move away from it, you see. Rather than try to deny the experience, it is to just make a reckon with it that I don't like that and I'm never going to choose that, but I'm just going to let them have it.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, a big one was just the drama with lost luggage and if things were
Yes.
going to show up and really I had everything I needed, so I should have been okay just saying, "Oh, everything's going to work out for everybody else." But yet I couldn't let that thought go about what if
Yeah.
this doesn't come? What if this doesn't work out?
One of the most difficult things for a human, especially when it comes to the ones that they love, is to let them experience their own experiences.
Hmm.
If you are to take on the suffering of every human, you're not going to have a very pleasant go of it yourself, we would tell you.
Right.
And so it is not selfish at all for you to just know that this one has to deal with this. It is not your job to fix it or to make it go away or to over sympathize, whatever it is that you feel as though you are compelled to do. And that sometimes just stepping back and allowing them to feel it, because as we try to lighten the load for others, oftentimes they end up storing it, or they don't really process, let's use that term, what it
Yeah.
is that they are going through. And it is their own individual experience. It is something that is needed for their own growth and well-being. And this is a really good way for you to go about your life, Heidi. And we think it would really quiet your mind down, because you are really trying to make it well for everyone. But in the meantime, not so well for yourself.
Right. Right. Well, that's some good advice. So I just wanted to ask one final question on the triggers, and that has to do with recognizing them in others. So sometimes we're in relationship, close relationship with children and husbands and friends, and we may recognize or see a trigger.
Yes.
Um, are we best not to say a word? If the person is open spiritually and working on their own triggers, is it okay to say, hey, I think maybe something's triggering you at this moment? Like, what would be the best way to proceed with people in your circle?
We would tell you to point out a trigger when one is triggered would be a grave mistake.
Okay.
The best thing that you can do when you know, and it is very evident, we would tell you for the one that is not triggered to see the one that is triggered.
Mhm.
The best thing that a human can do for one that is triggered is to offer them what they think they need, you see. If someone would have, and actually, we believe the gentleman that was serving you at the counter, he offered you, let me
Yes.
take you to the counter. He
Yeah.
soothed you, he gave you, and you felt the relief, didn't you? You felt the
Mhm.
trigger let go or be
Yeah.
released, you see.
Right.
So every human has an opportunity when they are in interaction with someone to see them and to see what they need. If they are feeling left out, if they are angered quickly, if they are abandoned, it is very evident for you to offer to soothe. Yes. And
Mhm.
in this way, you can bring them out of their trigger, and then they are feeling good about you because you have soothed them. Yes. And then
Mhm.
if you feel the opportunity is right, if you have space around you or privacy, and you would like to say, I knew what you needed because this is what I saw, you see. And
Mhm.
this would be maybe accepted, especially if you recognized them when they were needing recognition. But I think you know what we are saying. If you try to argue or push against one when they are triggered, it will just continue to build the trigger bigger and bigger.
Mhm. Yes, I would agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So, do you have any other advice for us on triggers, suffering,
Mm.
anything in particular that might be useful to the listeners?
We have told you over and over, and we are going to affirm it again. There's nothing wrong here. There's nothing bad happening. There's nothing you need to look out for or to avoid. You are having every experience you are needing to have in the way that you are needing to have it. And if you can adopt this understanding and this belief in the others in your life that are moving through their life experiences, it's going to be a whole lot pleasant for you and for them, you see. You are
Mhm.
not going to ever create in the life of another. Everyone is a sovereign being. You humans think you can protest, you think you can tell people what to do, but you're never going to change the core belief or the way that a human moves until they decide to do it for themselves. It is the way that you have come to the earth plane. You are individual creators creating individually for each one of yourself. And then based on what others are looking at, they are deciding, I like what you're doing. I'm going to do it too, you see. Why not
Mhm.
let your contribution be something that's wonderful? Let it be something that's an addition to the world. Why would you go out and agree to the masses in their negativity, in their murder, in their war, in all of the horrific things that you see? Why would you not want to put your lovely focus onto something that you would be proud of when the end day comes?
Mhm. I would agree. Yeah. Well, actually, I thought I was done with questions, but another one just popped. So with the little ones,
Mm.
we mentioned your grandson or Robin's grandson and his trigger. I see from time to time triggers in my grandson who doesn't really express a lot with words yet.
Yes.
Is there a different way of relating to a child with a trigger than you would an adult? You said the best thing with an adult is to
Yes.
let them, have comfort. Is it the same with a child? Is it different with a
We
child?
would say always match it. With an adult, if it was words, then you would soothe with words. If it is child, it is not yet words, then it is touch, you see.
Okay.
It is looking into their eyes, holding their face in your hands,
Hmm.
you see, portraying your support, your love, your touch. This is what they are going to respond to because they are not full of words yet, you see. Words are just such a small form of communication. We are surprised because many humans think that talking is the only way of communicate. And we have said before, when we are in session, yes, and we are doing it now, we communicate with signal, with sign, you see. And we are doing it right now as we are speaking to you. Now, we know that you know that there is something that we are communicating to you through the signals or signs that we are using right now. And it is an individualistic type of communication for every different being that we have a session with. And we are moving even deeper, far deeper than we could with words. It is what causes a human to move or be transformed, let's use that term, when they really feel deeply understood, when they really feel as though they have been received, you see. Is there any doubt to you as we communicate to you in this way that you can feel something or that there is a communication that is happening that is not just in words?
I feel a sense when I watch the hands, I feel a sense of soothing.
Yes, this
Yeah,
is what it is. Yes.
yeah.
And so when you are communicating with your grandson, as you stroke his head, as you feel his cheek, and as you look into his eyes, he will recognize that form of communication greater than any words you can give him.
Hmm.
Mm.
Good, good. Well, I really enjoyed getting back at it today. It had been a while, so hopefully we didn't have people miss out too much when we were gone. We'll be back on a more regular schedule now, weekly schedule. If you have any questions for Athena in Truth, you can email me, Heidi, at athenaintruth.com. And again, she has a podcast. We'll be doing this hopefully weekly. So we'd love to hear from you. Thank you,
We've
Robin.
enjoyed this interaction more than words can say. Yes. And we are looking forward, Heidi, to the next time that we will talk again. Good day.
Good day. Thank you.